What we are discussing in the previous class was micro-ring resonators. So we'll continue that again. So and we are basically two types of micro-ring resonator we discussed. One is all-pass configuration, another is add-drop. So first we are addressing all-pass configuration. So to discuss that, we have taken a simple example of a racetrack type situation as an example. So this is your pass waveguide, and you have some racetrack waveguide, and you have some region, it is coupled. So this is your, okay, maybe a little bit thicker would be better. Just to give a picturization of waveguide. Okay, this is all pass configuration, and so we can consider this is input, and this is your output, and we derived the transfer function input output considering several parameters like throughput coupling. Here this type of coupling we have considered like a T, and through cross coupling is T and through coupling is T R. Okay, so we have considered like this. Okay, and this is your T, this coupling is T, and also round trip loss factor is A we have considered, and perimeter is AL we have considered, and we have considered in effective is the waveguide. It can be lambda dependent, but we assumed initially that it is wavelength independent, and based on that we try to understand few things that is actually called free spectral range, and then number two will be learning about Q factor or Q value, and then another important parameter sometimes it is used, that is called finesse. Okay, so we have discussed this FSR considering this is lambda independent consider. Okay, and if it is lambda independent, then we have considered this FSR. If it is okay, this FSR we have defined as C by N effective L. That is what we have considered in terms of frequency delta nu. Okay, otherwise lambda square by N effective L, something we have derived in the previous class. Okay, this is actually FSR, delta nu FSR. That means resonance successive difference between successive resonance frequency. Right now, same FSR I would like to discuss today. If in case N effective is, in case means practical situation, that is lambda dependent, or we can say that this can be omega dependent. Okay, so this is the case, and now we would like to find out the FSR value. Okay, so FSR is basically what to write. Yeah, so we derived, you remember that the resonance condition, this total phase, round trip phase, must be equal to 2 m pi, right? And then this can be modified as, say, omega by c n effective omega L equal to 2m pi. Remember that m equal to 1, 2. So it is a discretized thing. So this omega m must be discretized. Omega should be discretized also. This condition will be, you will be getting a particular solution for particular m value for omega. N effective omega, for example, you know for a given waveguide what is the frequency dependent refractive index, you know. L is the perimeter length. Okay. Now, if I just little bit modify this one, right hand side, if I just write left hand side, if I write n effective omega equal to, we can write 2 pi c by L m.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, even I can't hear him.
This is a variable, omega is a variable, and m is also a variable. Okay. So in that case, if I just make some derivative with respect to omega, derivative with respect to omega, both side we are just doing, then what I'll be writing left hand side I can write omega dn effective by d omega, right, plus n effective, that is the left hand side. And the right hand side, if I see that 2 pi c lambda, these are constant. As we detune omega, if I am considering omega is a variable, I have to consider m also a variable. M integer though, and just for the time being, if I just consider that is also varying, and that variation is discrete, we know that. So we can write d omega like this. Okay. Now, if I consider this m, dm, what is the minimum value of dm one can consider? This minimum value of dm can be 1, right? Because 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. So discretization is 1. So if minimum value is 1, corresponding d omega, that can be considered as a F-HR, right? D omega will be F-HR. So I can write this way, because one resonance to another resonance, if I consider the corresponding frequency change means free spectral range change. That is what our definition says. So based on that, I write omega dn effective by d omega plus n effective, and here I write here 2 pi c by lambda, and this FSR, when I am considering this FSR in terms of angular frequency, but I can write in terms of linear frequency also. So I can write 1 divided by 2 pi FSR, FSR in linear frequency, 2 pi FSR. So angular frequency to linear spectral range I am just considering. If you have some problem in understanding, I think this is simple. So d omega equal to 2 pi nu. 2 pi nu? Yes.
It should be 2 pi c by L, right? Not lambda.
Sorry, that's correct. Yeah, that's a mistake. Lambda nowhere. So that's correct. So it would be L. Thank you. So this is the situation. Now this 2 pi cancel, right? Now if I just simply write FSR equal to C by L times this one, this particular thing. Okay, so I write that FSR in frequency domain, linear frequency domain, FSR equal to C by n effective plus omega d n effective by d omega times L. Okay, so this one we normally write down like this, NG L. What is this NG? NG is basically n effective plus omega d n effective by d omega, right? That is known as group index. You know what is group index? So if you have a multiple frequencies electromagnetic wave or any wave is propagating, then you can say that what is their collective velocity. So if you just make a superposition of all the waves, then you can see that some envelope will be formed, and that envelope will be moving in a certain propagation direction, and the velocity of that envelope is called group velocity. Okay, because entire group forming an envelope, and that envelope is propagating. So if I try to find out its velocity, that will be group velocity, and that group velocity is normally we define as Vg equal to C by Ng. Instead of simple refractive index, we consider there must be group index, and that group index, if you just divide C by Ng, then it will be group velocity. And this Ng can be shown that this Ng is nothing but this one. Okay, n effective omega dng by dn effective by d omega. Okay, and few aspects you should note down here. If you have this n effective is lambda dependent, then probably it would be better to write something like this: lambda plus omega equal to 2 pi c by lambda, and dn effective, d omega means d times d of 2 pi c by lambda. So if you just do this one little bit modification, then you will get n effective lambda minus lambda dn effective by d lambda. So now you know, if you have your waveguide mode, if you just put lambda dependent, and if it is a single mode, and if you just calculate n effective for any given waveguide, you can use numerical or whatever, then you may get something like this. Okay, n effective versus lambda. So at any point you are operating, for example, around that, if you just find dn effective by d lambda, if you just take a slope at this particular point, if you just take a slope, then that will be inserted here, and then you can get the group index. So normally this dn effective by d lambda, in normal cases, it is actually negative in nature. Okay, if this is negative in nature, we normally get Ng is greater than basically n effective. Typical single mode silicon SOHU waveguide, n effective you can define in the order of 2.75, but this group index can be is in the order of 3.8 to 4. It can be group index. So that means as a group it travels slower. Okay, whereas a phase velocity, if you are just considering, that is actually faster phase velocity. However, if you just somehow can design a waveguide which is having an effective flat, that is what we have discussed earlier, then this part will be 0 and this part will be 0, means that simply ineffective, that simple ineffective we have used earlier. So when dispersion is considered, then instead of effective index, you need to use group index for calculating FSR. So I can consider in terms of delta nu FSR. If I just consider, that is the expression that will be in hertz, that will be expressed in terms of hertz. So somehow if you get Ng, somehow it can happen that this dn effective by d lambda and n effective lambda, it varies such that Ng, maybe Ng, whenever you are considering Ng, also must be lambda dependent. But you can define that n effective may be wavelength dependent, but you can actually design a waveguide parameter such that ng lambda is nearly constant. You can design a waveguide where n effective may be dispersive, but ng lambda is nearly wavelength independent. Wavelength independent. So you know that is highly possible sometimes. Okay, some particular design you can get nearly wavelength independent. That's possible. N effective is a lambda dependent, and you have to find something dn effective by d lambda and lambda multiplication, so that whatever is falling as a function of lambda for the n effective things, so you can see that this can improve. This can go upward, this can go downward, and it can have a lambda variation, lambda invariant. So in that case, if group index is constant as a function of lambda, then we can say that the FSR is also can be constant, right? Otherwise, ng, if it is a little bit of wavelength dependent or frequency dependent, okay, so the FSR also will be, even though it is frequency domain, it should be frequency dependent. So that means if I have a resonance, consider the resonance is happening something like this. This is your lambda, and this is your resonance is happening here, and then resonance is happening here. So something like this. It will be regularly different order of resonance will be there, right? So whatever separation you will be getting here, FSR, it's a peak to peak separation. FSR is whatever FSR 1 I consider. If I just calculate FSR 2 here, separation, they need not be equal. Only thing is that if ng is lambda dependent, they should not be equal. But if ng around lambda 1 equal to ng around lambda 2, they are same, then you can consider that FSR 1 equal to FSR 2. Okay, so that is free spectral range. That is very important. That suppose you have calculated somewhere there resonance separation between, because any application you want to use micro ring resonator, you need to know what is its FSR, because which particular resonance it is dropping, it is storing, and then what would be the next wavelength. If this is your lambda, right? This is if you are operating around this lambda, so you don't need to bother about what is happening outside. But sometimes if you are using micro ring resonator as an integrated photonic component, so you may need to use different wavelengths for different purpose. Okay, so in that case, you have to see what is their separation. Okay, any question till this point? So it is a challenge that to predict properly, to get a good design, probably it is always good to have ng is at least ng should be even n effective lambda. We know that it is very difficult to get n effective lambda, but ng can be wavelength independent. You can design nearly wavelength independent, I would say, wavelength independent. Okay, so now next thing is that
Sir, how we ensure that ng is wavelength independent?
You have to design. So that is the thing. There is no thumb rule, but what you see that you see the expression ng lambda equal to n effective lambda minus lambda dn effective by d lambda. So that means you have to design. Normally, you know that n effective lambda depends on silicon waveguide, for example, you are considering. So this is your W, and this is your H, and this is your small h, right? Slab height. And surrounding is SiO2 you have, and bottom is also SiO2. So you are considering, then you can get effective index for a certain lambda, right? Now I know, suppose I increase W. Okay, as I increase W, what do you think, that n effective lambda will be more wavelength dependent, n effective will be more wavelength dependent or not? What is your idea? What is your intuition? Suppose I am increasing, I have a particular waveguide. Now I am increasing W. So what do you expect that an effective, just don't consider any expressions or anything. Just intuitively you try to think lambda, wavelength, electromagnetic wave, that type of concept you just think, consider. And based on that, can you just tell me if you are increasing omega W, the dispersion of the guided mode will be more or less? Any idea? So let me try to help you. You see, you have a waveguide. Okay, like this. And another waveguide is something like this. Consider this W is much higher. Now tell me which one will be more dispersive. Or if that is also it's difficult, let us consider. So I said this is actually your SiO2 and this is SiO2. And this is also I consider SiO2 and SiO2. Now let us consider that you are considering only planar waveguide. SiO2 and SiO2. One direction very infinitely extended. This one will be more dispersive or this one will be more dispersive. Just if I ask that, you just consider fundamental mode for all. You just solve. Here you are getting an effective lambda, or you are calculating say an effective Ng you are calculating, and here you are Ng calculating, and here Ng calculating. Okay, or you are trying to get a dn effective by d lambda. That is actually the measure of dispersion, right? How the slope is dn effective by d lambda. So dn effective by d lambda is 0, means it is a Ng is dispersionless, something like that you can imagine. So my point is n effective lambda, I'm changing lambda here. So it's a W is very tight, and I consider propagation at 1550 nanometer, and I have calculated n effective. Now if I consider 1600 nanometer lambda here, similarly if I consider 1500 nanometer and then 1600 nanometer I am calculating. Just consider these two. So suppose I know effective index at 1500 nanometer, and then I am calculating 1600 nanometer. So here I am calculating N1, here I am calculating N2. And here I am calculating N1 prime, and here I am calculating N2 prime. Now can you tell me N1 minus N2, whatever way, N1 minus N2 and N1 prime minus N2, which one will be larger?
N1 minus N2.
This one will be larger. Why
Yes.
you are saying so?
Because N1, N1 prime and N2 prime are N effective, right? So
That is also ineffective. That is also you are considering fundamental mode only. Okay, another way of discussing. Suppose you are calculating fundamental mode like this. If you are just field strength, if you are getting evanescent tail will be there outside, right? And here also evanescent tail will be there outside. Okay, so now this is calculated 1500 nanometer, say 1500 nanometer. So let me consider cleaning up this thing. So this is a 1500 nanometer. Now W is about 500 nanometer. Now suppose it is 1 micrometer. W is 1 micrometer, double, triple, something like that you are considering, and fundamental mode. Now you see lambda 1500 nanometer you are calculating, and lambda 1600 nanometer you are calculating. So if I just consider only this evanescent tail, or wavelength point of view, this particular dimension 500 nanometer will be more influenced, or when it is waveguide is relaxed width, I'm just changing 1500 to 1600 nanometer. Which one will be more impactful? Let me rephrase my question. Here 500 nanometer waveguide width, here 1 micron waveguide width. Now I am just considering wavelength difference from 1500 to 1600, and I am trying to calculate the mode, effective index, or whatever. And here also I am considering 1500 to 1600 nanometer. So now this effective refractive index, when you are calculating, which one will be more impactful if you change wavelength here and here?
In the first case, sir, because like if we increase
You
the
see, now
wavelength,
you see,
then,
qualitatively you can say that first class impact will be more, because
yes.
with respect to the dimension, you see 100 nanometer you are changing. 500 nanometer width, you are changing 100 nanometer. So that wavelength change is really substantial. But here, if you see 1500 to 1600, 100 nanometer you are changing, but waveguide width is 1 micron. So if you just lambda, with respect to lambda, if you see, the 1 micron width is a large basically, and here small. So evanescent tail will be more impactful. Not only evanescent tail, when evanescent tail is outside, you can imagine that, okay, effective index also of the guided mode will be different. So this will be more dispersive and this will be less dispersive. So this is one example I say, that if you can control this W, H and small h, somehow you can engineer dispersion. So you can do some kind of dispersion engineering, waveguide dispersion engineering. So there may be chance that you can get a dispersion.
Sir, you are not audible.
Hello, sir. Hello. Hello, sir.
Yeah, so I was disconnected actually. So it is possible that dispersion you can actually engineer. Is that clear, Ankita?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
This change in effective index, like if we change the wavelength, the effect of change in wave.
So differential change in wavelength will be more here.
Does
So
it
that is
depend
actually
on capital H and small h also, or
yes, yes.
only on
I think
W?
no. I am just, as I said, I am just giving one example. W. You have these 3 parameters in your hand.
Yes.
Okay. So these 3 parameters you can just play with. So thing is that you have to think of many things. You need to have single mode waveguide, and you want to have dispersion as less as possible. Okay, but you can design your device with certain dispersion you can tolerate. So all these actually trade-off. So whenever you are designing a device, you need to consider all these parameters basically. Okay.
Sir, for W, we told that because the wavelength is near to the W,
Yeah, in the order of W.
those values are near, then qualitatively we could say that W equal 500 nanometers would be affected more.
So
But how do we explain qualitatively for H, capital H and small h?
Similar, because you see, normally you have to compare with the lambda. Okay, if your height is, you are going more and more, for example. So in that case, for example, if you are considering say 5 micrometer thickness of H equal to 5 micrometer. So in that case, if I just change 1500 to 1600 nanometer, right, effective index will not be, you will not see much change, because with respect to that height basically, if I consider for a given W, and small h, suppose capital H is 5 micrometer, so that would be less things, but all of them are very tight. For example, W, capital A, small h is tight. So then obviously it is more and more dispersive. But you can think of that, okay, I relax W at the cost of reducing H. So the trend of this wavelength variation, or dependence on refractive index change on W and capital H may be different. And another thing is that, as I said, that this field, it does not only depend on this direction, what is the refractive index contrast, but this direction also you have to see that this direction you have silicon dioxide, and silicon in between. So all this, depending on that, you can find that somehow you can engineer. Okay, so this is just a qualitative example I'm saying, but ultimately what is the exact dispersion, obviously you have to calculate. And you can find a certain dimension is giving fantastically very good dispersion free waveguide. Dispersion free, when I say that, that's a waveguide dispersion. Material dispersion is always there. That is normally we ignore because it is very small compared to waveguide dispersion when I'm considering the dimension of the waveguide. Okay. Now next thing is that, so we know now FSR. FSR, we are actually having a expression C by NGL. You just look again, one thing is that how it is changing. So does this FSR depends on loss of the waveguide?
No, sir.
No, because the expression says that only NG. In NG does not depends on what is the loss inside or whatever things, so that is you are not considering. Only CL, these are the things, right? So it is a loss independent, that you should remember. So that means, what I mean to say, whenever you are considering, sorry, yeah. So here it does not depend on A, it does not depend on T, it does not depend on R. So you can have any value, but it depends on L. It depends on waveguide dimension. That is how you are deciding your so-called group index. And next question is that, just try to see this one. If I just write this one, can you see? What is this one? C by NG?
Group velocity.
Group velocity. So VG by L. Right? So can we write like this? What is this? L by VG?
Time taken by the
Time. This means if any information is pushed into the ring, so that information will travel with a group velocity, right? And that group velocity, and L is the perimeter divided by group velocity. So that means time of flight, one round trip. Time taken for one round trip travel time. So that means it is actually, we can write tau R. So that means FSR, it's interesting, na? FSR means free spectral range depends on inverse of round trip travel time of any signal inside the ring. So if you know how much time it will take, or if you know FSR, somehow you have your device fabricated and you know that what is the FSR, then you know if I inject my signal, how much time it will take for a one round trip. Right? One thing is that obviously if you know your NG, then you can calculate quickly. But from the spectral response, FSR, you can calculate also. Once you know the term, just inverse of that, that means it is the separation of resonance. You can quickly conclude. Okay, this is one thing very important, that what is the round trip testing. So now we will be considering Q value. Next thing is that Q value. FSR we consider, now Q value. Okay, so what is that Q value? We know Q value, Q factor from the resonance point of view. A resonance circuit, if we define, a little bit we discussed in the previous class. Here I'm just giving you that qualitatively we know how much energy storage capacity, but quantitatively we define with a certain kind of figure of merit. Figure of merit means I know that how much capability is there, that has to be described in terms of some physical parameter, right? So quality factor, in principle, it is defined by omega Q equal to omega means angular frequency, energy stored in the resonator, and then power dissipation. Remember, I am writing here energy and here I am writing power. What is the difference between power and energy? Anyone?
Energy per time.
So energy flow per unit time is the power. So that means where I am saying that power dissipation, that means energy dissipation per unit time. So that means I can write energy omega times energy yes, sorry, I think today again and again it is disturbing in my end. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we said that omega times energy stored by energy dissipation per unit time. This is the expression of Q value, figure of merit we are talking, because energy stored is not enough. I have to look into how much energy being lost also every time. And we have just scaled with omega, angular frequency. It will be clearer a little bit later. Just consider Q equal to omega. I can write like this, 2 pi by T. What is T? Omega equal to 2 pi by T. That's a time period, right? Is that clear? Are you all there?
Yes.
Rishabh?
Yes, sir.
So is this clear? Omega equal to 2 pi by T.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this T means time period of the resonance frequency, and this I must consider that one of the resonance frequency, right? So 2 pi by T means electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave, it is a sinusoidal, right? So that sinusoidal, that particular frequency sinusoidally oscillating. So time period of one full oscillation times energy stored in the cavity divided by energy dissipation per unit time. Okay. Now energy dissipation per unit time. if I just write 2 pi times energy store divided by energy dissipation, you see this is per unit time. If I multiply T, what you will get? What I should write? Energy dissipation. If I multiply this one with T, what does it mean? Energy dissipation T times that one time period. Energy dissipation per cycle of oscillation, per cycle of oscillation. One oscillation cycle. One oscillation cycle. Normally, you know, this time period, you know, if I am considering 1550 nanometer wavelength, what is the T value? You know that? If lambda equal to 1550 nanometer, so we know time period is T equal to 2 pi by omega, right? So 1 by nu, right? So if you can calculate frequency, then you can find the time period, right? So normally nu is, if you just consider 1550 nanometer, what is the frequency? That is actually 190, around 195 terahertz. Terahertz means 195 into 10 to the power 12, right? 10 to the power 12 hertz. So mega, giga, tera, right? Yeah, 12. So this much terahertz. So upon that one, you will get the time of oscillations. So this is the Q value, that energy stored divided by energy dissipation per oscillation. That means you have to consider the time, how much resonance frequency and that particular frequency, what is the time period I need to know. Within that time period, how much being lost. Because of the loss in a ring resonator, something will be going, some energy will be lost. So that is normal. That means energy stored is normalized to that one. That is actually is a figure of merit called quality factor. And this 2 pi, we just scale it. This is because this 2 pi sometimes, you know, it comes all the time, because when you are changing from frequency domain to time domain, in Fourier transform, 2 pi always we use, their ratio is 2 pi. So that is the reason this time domain to frequency domain, this 2 pi as a, just it's a scaling factor you can consider for the moment. Ultimately, you are just using Q value to quantify how good is the cavity for storing energy. Okay, now our target is that we should try to find out Q value in terms of in the cavity loss, group index, cavity length, and maybe the, total loss. Total loss means it can be loss. You can consider something like this here. So this loss factor here and loss factor whenever it is coming down, going there, some loss factor will be there. So can we now, if I know, because when I'm designing a device, I only know what would be the design and fabricate. I will be knowing maybe what would be the loss, what would be the length, how much it is coupling. All this only I will be knowing, or I can estimate, or I can calculate, or I can measure. So after measuring that, suppose I want to tell someone that, okay, this is the ring resonator. And if I say it is a good ring resonator, people will say good means what? In what sense it is good? So to understand that, we actually use certain figure of merits. So such figure of merits are, one figure of merits is FSR. Another figure of merit is a quality factor. And another, last one is the finesse. So we will be just trying to say that, okay, FSR is this one. So if someone needs a high FSR, that is good. Someone needs good for him. Someone needs low FSR, that will be good for them. But quality factor, when you say that it's a quality factor is good, means how much it is a resonator. Resonator means always we consider how much energy being stored. So In that case, you have to always consider that, okay, good or bad means Q value. Normally, this a good resonator means people mean quality factor. Okay, so I will just try to derive this expression in the next class, quality factor, for this all pass configuration. I think today I just interrupting again and again. I can stop here. Any questions you have, we can just clarify. Otherwise, we stop. No question, right?
Sir, one thing regarding this numerical support.
Yeah. Numerical support for you, they do have, they are accessing, right?
No, this is not about